So it's good to be wrong sometimes because you can still make good decisions. There you go, staying in sheep. That was a good decision, wasn't it? No, I mean that quite honestly. Last year, 2009, the people that suffered the most were the people, financially, were the people that didn't have any sheep. They were totally exposed to crop and they had nothing to balance the negative outcome of cropping last year. And it'll be the same this year. Not that it's a competition, of course. Okay, and the other thing is, really look for certainty. What do I know with confidence? What don't I know with confidence? And decisions we make, we really want to try and go down the path that's going to deliver us some level of certainty. Because it's difficult to punt. There's so many variables we can't control, so we've really got to say, well, what's the most probable outcome? What's the most probable result that we're going to get? So we're looking for certainty all the time. So selling sheep, we know what they're worth today. We can speculate what they're worth in 3 months' time. What do I need in my business today? Certainty or not? Can I afford to take a punt on carrying them for 3 months and potentially get more money? Or am I better off taking the good money that's on offer today because that gives me certainty, that gives me a certain position. One other thing that's good about the moment is that there's this massive demand for sheep from the east. Without that, it would be an absolute dog's breakfast, don't you think? I mean, how many times when we've had these dry springs when we've been sort of sitting down now going, right, sheep are worth next to nothing today, but if I keep them for 3 months, they might be worth next to nothing plus $5. Oh, gee, that's a good one. Yeah. Whereas now they're worth an absolute mozza today. They might be worth a bit more tomorrow, but what's the value to my business of keeping them for another 3, 6, 8 months for the next season? I guess that's, to me, that's a nice turnaround in events for the sheep. Okay, so part of the decision making for the next couple of months is all about preserving income generating potential for next year. The experience from the eastern states when they had a run of these sort of years, it was really all about how effective your recovery was. How well set up were you to maintain income into the future years? So I guess while you're plotting and scheming with what to do for the next few months, you've got to keep an eye on what impact it has on your income earning potential for next year. So selling all your sheep for a reasonable quid at the moment would make sense from a physical point of view, nothing on the farm to feed or sort of business, but what's that doing for you next year and the year after? And someone mentioned that you're not going to buy them back easily. You could, but you don't know. And if you can, you don't know what you're able to buy. They might be skinny old ewes you can't join anyway. They're definitely not your sheep. So in terms of genetics and condition, you've got no idea what the market will be at. There's certainly an option to sell all your sheep with a view to buy them back, but you've lost certainty, haven't you? Yeah, and I suspect one thing you've got up your sleeve potentially is the ability to crop a few more acres next year to try and plug that gap. And it's all about working through scenarios. Now, this can be a lot of work because there's a whole range, as Jeremy was saying, there's a whole range of permutations that you can work through. But the important thing is to work out, well, what do you think the worst situation might be? So you need to know your downside risk. And then what's the best we can expect? So you need to know the upside potential. And then what's most likely? So where are we most likely to sit given what I know? And you sort of think, well, if this downside result will absolutely sink us, that helps focus you on, well, what do we need to manage from our risk? Okay, if we can't afford this, how do we manage our way through to make sure that doesn't happen? It's important to know your worst case, your best case and your most likely, so you can start to make objective decisions then. Okay, sheep. It's going to cost money to get sheep through. This is an example. Okay, we work through. Okay, let's say we've got some grain at $300 a head. We've got 5,000 sheep. In November, we're going to feed them 25% of what we think they're going to need to maintain. 50% through December, they get onto stubbles, the stubbles are running out, and we're back into March, April, and a bit of rain in April perhaps. So that's a pretty, it's possible. That would be a best case scenario for the coming spring, summer, isn't it? Well, you've got to think positive. So for 5,000 sheep, it's going to cost us $27,000 in grain, $5 odd a head, right? You could probably manage that, couldn't you, 5,000 sheep? If we're not so optimistic, feed a bit in November, a fair bit more in December, and we're fully feeding right through to April, and on average there should be some rain in May. We're going to need 300, that's about 63 kilos of grain per head. It's going to cost us nearly $100,000. Now that's $18.90 a DSE. Normally that would probably be about $5 a DSE anyway. So it's the marginal difference between what you'd normally do and what this outcome possibly is. So what's that? That's $13, $14 a DSE extra. So it's not the full 100,000, it's a bit less than that, but it's still a fair chunk of cash. Okay, have you got access to that level of capital? Can you buy the grain? Can you afford to retain the grain to feed the sheep? That's the first question. If the answers are resounding no, that then tells you something about this number of sheep that you can carry through summer. Okay, so and the trick there is to make that realisation sooner rather than later, so you've still got options up your sleeve. You've still got something to sell that someone might want to buy. If you leave that decision until it's quite obvious something has to go, then you quite likely end up with sheep that someone might not want to buy. And if they do want to buy them, they won't pay you much for them. And the other cost is that if some of those sheep go, they've eaten feed that other sheep would have eaten on the farm during the summer. So there's a time cost for hanging on to sheep that are going anyway. So that's just an example of running scenarios. What do I know? What can I expect? What might it cost me? Have I got the cash to do it? Yes, no. No? Right. Do it early.